I've gotta say, Hook is the best Euro platformer on the Famicom. That was not a compliment. This game is not a stripped-down port of the Hook game that you might have played on a 16-bit console. Instead, it's a port of a game created for 8-bit microcomputers. It is at least based on the Steven Spielberg movie, which is often cited as one of the worst Steven Spielberg movies. Hook is the last Sony game to be released on the Famicom. Sony hadn't quite given up on sticking with game development yet. It's really next year when they start shifting their focus to making their own console. The plot of the game is that of the movie. Peter Pan left Neverland and grew up, but eventually Captain Hook found him, abducted his children, and Pan has to return and rediscover the magic of childhood. The game has you crossing a map of Neverland. At any point, you can move to one of several different levels. You don't have to replay any levels that you've cleared, however. The levels exist in clusters, where you might have to spend 4 or 5 levels looking for an artifact, and then you'll be allowed to move on to the next block. There are 4 different kinds of stages in Hook, and the most common of these are the platforming stages. Here, you're just running around the stage. A will jump, B will perform an attack, kind of. The sword is pathetically weak, doesn't even pause enemies, and it takes so many hits to defeat someone that you'll be pretty sure that the sword does absolutely nothing. You can't even attack while jumping. It's so bad that I'd really recommend just avoiding enemies rather than trying to fight anything. Something to be aware of is that your movement doesn't interact with stage objects consistently. Some ladders you can jump onto and jump off of, others you can't. Your goal on these stages is to collect all of the items and then make your way to the exit. This could be pieces of fruit, or a cupcake, or something like that. There are a few tools you can collect that will help you. Tinkerbell can be used to attack enemies, but she flies off when you start a stage. You'll have to collect thimbles, which are used to power her attack, and then locate where she is, and then she'll follow you until you hold up and press B. She'll destroy some enemies that she'll hit, and using this attack costs 1 thimble. There's also a treasure detector that replaces your sword. You can no longer attack after you've picked it up, but you can find hidden treasures that are worth points and nothing else. Just hold down B to keep it out, and when it starts beeping, stand in place until the treasure appears. If you collect marbles, then you can bounce off of pixie dust. The game claims that this is making you fly, but you're bouncing, and every bounce costs 1 marble. Similar to the platforming stages are the water levels. Here you swim Pan around, and have to collect all of the pearls. You move around by mashing the A button, because every time you tap the A button, Pan will move a very tiny amount. You also tend to get hung up on terrain that you're not really anywhere near, and this is made even worse because they like to put things into really cramped spots on these maps. While you take damage if you run into an enemy, your health bar also ticks down over time. Since you don't fully recover health between levels, that means that you can enter water stages in an unwinnable state. The only other thing that you can collect on these stages are anvils, which immediately send you all the way to the bottom. Once you've collected all of the pearls, then you just have to get to the surface. Between some areas are flying stages, and here you just have to steer Pan around obstacles that are coming at you. These are trivially easy unless you put the controller down and walk away. The final kind of stage is the boss fight, and here hitting B will swing your weapon, which is still incredibly ineffective, while A is used to jump. Also, you have to jump to turn around. So if the boss gets behind you, then you have to not hit any direction, tap A, and that will rotate you. Your health bar is represented by how open your shirts are, which is an interesting choice. Just getting any kind of hit consistently in these fights is difficult, so these are somehow even more clunky than the regular stages. As a very late and very minor Famicom release, Hook's a game that doesn't get brought up a lot online. Most Japanese players seem to think the game is pretty easy, and I played for an hour, got 1 game over, and I made it about halfway through the game. Now I've had a lot of negative things to say about Hook, and that's because those are the only things that stand out about this one. It's not the worst game in the world, it's just intensely mediocre. It doesn't even use an 8-bit version of the John Williams movie score, which was the only thing I liked in the original film. Hook's the kind of game that I'm not even going to remember anything significant about it a month from now. Maybe if the controls were better, if the combat wasn't so unfun, if it used the license better, then maybe people would think fondly of this one? But then it would be a different game entirely.